Hi, welcome to the 12th mystery chocolate tasting, the rerun. Thank you. I'm glad that this time worked for you to join. And I'm really pleased that Al, the chocolatier, Al Garnsworthy, is here to taste through the chocolates with us, and he can explain all about them. Hopefully you have your chocolates ready, and also a few of the other things that are in your mystery tasting pack that will be useful. And you might like a mug of hot water as well. So we began mysteries take different of craft chocolate maker bars. Then in October we switched to a mixed box of all different chocolatiers. And then last month and this month, one chocolatier is making all the chocolates, but they are exclusive to us. So last month it was a chocolatier who doesn't make any chocolates anymore, which is exciting. And this month Al has created this set, which he isn't selling right now. One of them he has sold before many years ago, and some are twists on ones he sold before. And he might produce them again one day. But the whole ethos of the Chocolate Society is a new box of chocolates every month, plus a set of things that they do sell all the time. And I think these ones are really special and exciting. So I hope you do as well. I'm gonna get Al to chip in after we reveal the chocolates to kind of tell you a bit more about it, and you can ask him questions as well. The things that you might are the tasting sheet, the A4 piece of paper that I don't have on me, but I do encourage you to write notes. And part of that is because I would suggest that you don't eat the entire chocolate. I know this is the tricky bit, but during this session, try not to eat the entire chocolate while we're tasting it together, because all chocolates taste different depending on what you've eaten just before, as well as your mood and many other things. So if you try them again later, the reason that we want to taste weight is partly because of how things taste differently depending on what you've tasted before. And the other reason is because that's what it takes to be able to say, oh, now I can figure out what it is. So you need someone to shout out what the flavour is. But even after we revealed it, try and save a little bit to try it in a different order later, if you can. Totally understand if you don't. And the reason I suggest writing notes is because that way when you try them again, and it can be immediately, in fact, the sooner the better after we finish tasting them all, you can compare what you wrote in your first notes to how you taste it again. It's better to wait longer if they're not filled chocolates, but because we're cutting fresh chocolates, then it's better to, like, once you've cut into a chocolate, you want to kind of eat it within the next 2 or 3 hours. But if you're sharing with someone and you've got 2 boxes, you could do share one half now and then open them later tonight or tomorrow. The tasting sort of prompts that are written on that note are some of the things that we look for when we're judging chocolate. They're not all super important in terms of scoring a chocolate. So something like aroma isn't going to be a pass or fail or affect whether a chocolate gets a gold award or not. They're just kind of things that you might like to think about. I think especially with filled chocolate, it's really useful to smell them first, because so much of what we taste is connected to our sense of smell. And if you don't smell a chocolate, once you put it in your mouth, you won't be able to smell it through your nose, so your orthonasal olfaction. You can try that as an experiment as we go. But I do suggest on that tasting sheet, just kind of give it a score out of 100. This is personal for you. We're not judging Al's chocolates. We're trying to guess the flavors, but I think it's fascinating to go back and go like, this is the one I love the most, and you can just kind of be practice judges today. The other thing that is useful for chocolate tasting is the tasting wheel. So this is designed just for plain dark chocolate. It's the most flavor complex food in the world. It has more flavors in it than wine, than coffee, than beer. And the ones in the outer ring are just some of the flavors that you can identify in some dark chocolates. So across the whole range of plain dark chocolates, you would potentially get all of these flavors. They are not all positive. So things like cardboard, not something you find naturally in chocolate. That would be a taint from the packaging. So that is the downside of this sheet. Is that this particular tool doesn't clarify which ones are positive and which ones are not so positive. But I also don't like to be prescriptive, because perhaps you like cardboard in your chocolate. And where possible, they are as close to similar flavors, and they're grouped by major groups. So when you're trying to figure out how something tastes, you would start at the center. So look at roasted, spicy, fruity, and that might be the easiest way to kind of classify a chocolate. And although this is designed for dark, plain chocolate, it's quite helpful for tasting filled chocolates, because a lot of the ingredients that turn up in filled chocolates are the same ones you find naturally in chocolate. So you can use this if you can identify that the chocolate that you're trying tastes fruity. You can look at the outer of this sort of orange section and see if any of those words are the fruit that you're tasting. So it's basically like a cheat sheet of sorts. Yeah, so hopefully that is useful. And I think that's it. I think that's all the important bits. I always recommend people now, since my friend Sunita, who also leads chocolate tastings in the US, having hot water while you are doing chocolate tastings. So any other drinks can affect how you taste the next thing. So if you kind of have a glass of wine, it's going to make the thing affect it, obviously. Chocolate melts at body temperature. And so if you're drinking cold water, any chocolate that's in your mouth is going to kind of solidify until it melts again once your mouth warms up. So by having water that is warmer than your body temperature, then you're helping to wash away any chocolate. Obviously, you don't really want to wash away these delicious chocolates too quickly, but in terms of tasting the next one, it might be helpful. The list of allergens. So if anyone has any concerns about this one, to keep it a surprise, I will not be announcing which ones have which in them, I think colours is probably fairly obvious, but some people are allergic to specific colours, so we could find that out. So send me a private message now or Al, and we can tell you which colour not to consume. Everybody good? Okay. So the first chocolate that we're going to taste, I'll leave the screen. Let me just, seems to react quite slowly when here we go. Ta-da! Okay, this is the first one we're going to taste. And I'll click through one more time and you can see what it looks like cut through. So I always try and cut through the chocolates that I'm tasting if I can, because I like to see what the inside looks like. So if we were judging this, we would be also assessing its technical skill, which in this case, sort of truffles you find in a supermarket will be made with a very thick shell. So when you're ready, if you want to start hitting me up with your suggestions for what you think you can taste in this chocolate. Kind of peanut buttery. So you're correct on the praline. It is not a peanut. And so this is another reason why I wanted you to try and keep half of the chocolate. So I shouldn't have started tasting and talking at the same time. My mother would be very embarrassed. Is because what happens is your palate gets better at tasting. So if you need any encouragement to eat more chocolate, it's because the more you eat, the better you get at tasting, up to a point where you get not good at all. So we found that there's a kind of a bell curve of tasting. So the first few things you taste, your palate isn't warmed up enough to be able to pick up on things. And then as you taste more, you get better. And then if you taste too much, you just can't tell the wood from the trees and everything kind of tastes the same. So that was the reason I had this one first in my mind, and then I switched it for the second one that we're about to taste. And then for you guys, I switched it back because the second one's much more intense than this. And so I thought, well, we'll see if people taste this first, can they pick up on the flavor? It's hard to pick up on. Shall I tell you what it is? You'll get it later when your palate warms up a bit, I promise. So leave it and try again in a little while. And it is a praline, so it has hazelnut in it, right, Al?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so it has hazelnut and it also has popcorn. So that kind of buttery brown sugar is all, I'll let you talk about it, Al.
Yeah, the popcorn one's one which we've been playing with, and we're actually putting it into our monthly box at the Chocolate Society this month. And it was really interesting to let the group on Thursday try it and get the feedback, because when we actually made it again on Friday. So we've actually tweaked the recipes. So this is obviously from the first batch, but the new recipe has more popcorn, less hazelnut, and a bit more salt. So for me, it's really interesting because there's definitely kind of like toastiness and, the sweetness and a bit of saltiness, and it works well with the hazelnut, but it's an interesting flavor, and one that I think there's a lot of scope for, but it's quite experimental at this stage as well. So it's not really a finished chocolate, but I think there's definitely promise in that kind of flavor combination, and it is a bit different.
Yeah, when Al suggested this one to be part of the box, I was like, definitely, we haven't had anything like that before. And so I just tasted it now, and I'm not getting the popcorn this time, but I don't think that's because I cut it open a few days ago. I found that when I tried it previously, like sometimes I got it and sometimes I didn't. So that's why I'm saying if you do wait till your palate has a bit more chocolate and try it again, then I think you'll notice it. So for me, it was like I always had powdered sugar on chocolate, powdered sugar on popcorn growing up. That makes more sense. Rather than like salt, and so that kind of sugary, crunchy sugar. It reminds me of the crunch of the popcorn and the sweetness of the popcorn that from how we had it growing up. But then it also has that like buttery movie butter popcorn taste with a little bit of salt too. So yeah, I do think you'll taste it when you try it again later. Okay. Yeah, I want to try the new one with even more popcorn as well. Yeah, the toasty note. So once you get told, it helps to make.
Yeah, and we've actually flipped it. So the new version is in a blonde chocolate shell. So it's in a caramelized white chocolate shell, and then you have more popcorn in the popcorn praline. So that's probably not even there yet either, but it's definitely like going in the right direction.
I love that. We're going to talk more about Al and how he got into chocolate as well, but the Chocolate Society started in 2011. So this is 10 years of experience coming into this. So he's like not really there yet. I think they're all amazing versions of chocolates that he puts out. Like, so that chocolate as it is perfectly enjoyable. And yet there'll be other versions that will be just as delicious. So it's all about like what vision you have in it not being there yet, I think, rather than not being already.
I think that's the fun part of what I do is kind of, you know, is constantly evolving and, you know, trying to tweak and trying to make things a little bit different and, you know, trying to constantly improve on the recipes.
Okay, the next chocolate, I'll share my screen again so that you can see it. And I did reveal. Okay, so it's a green one. I should tell you so in case you want to start cutting. We're going to try the green dome. They're very helpfully easy to identify the chocolates in this box. So that was the popcorn praline. And the green chocolate is next. Just show you the cut through of the inside. So we've had a praline. This, as you can probably tell from the cut through, and if you've started tasting it, is a ganache. So a ganache is usually a mixture of chocolate, cream, and a little bit of butter. And a ganache is essentially like the base of a truffle. So a truffle is a ganache and usually dipped in chocolate or cocoa powder. Or you can pipe a ganache into a ready-made shell. So in this case, Al and his team have made these shells, the domes. They pipe the ganache in, and then once it kind of sets and crystallizes a little bit, then they'll cap it off with another layer of chocolate. You can make ganaches from liquids other than cream. And so it can be made with, I'll just stop sharing my screen again. It can be made with alcohol, with fruit juice, with fruit purees, with just plain water. So those are all delicious ganaches as well, but traditionally it's cream and butter. Okay, what flavors are you getting from this one? Tasting wheel might help. I'll give you a clue in a minute. So the clue is that there are 2 additional ingredients in this, apart from the chocolate and the cream and the butter. Okay, basil, tonka, like Thai basil, citrusy, nutmeg. So one of the ingredients is in the orange fruit section, and the other is in the dark, where is it gone? Yeah, the dark green vegetal, or the blue green, I should say, the vegetal section.
I think Kate is just maybe mentioned.
You guys are great. You both, like between you, you've picked out the ingredients.
Yeah, very quickly. Really quickly.
Yeah, you guys are excellent. We need to do just a private group with you lot every month. So Anna, you're correct. Basil is the herb. And Kate, it is yuzu. So it's basil and yuzu. But I'll hand over to Al to tell you how he created this chocolate.
Yep, so I infuse basil into cream, and then I create an infusion. And then once I've got the infusion, I then make a ganache with milk chocolate. And then what I do is at the end, I add yuzu, which is kind of like it's from the citrus family. So it's like an oriental lime, a bit like mandarin, maybe a bit of grapefruit. and it's quite kind of floral and it's a very strong flavor. So I add real yuzu juice into the end of that ganache. So you've got the basil, which is quite unusual, but then you've got the kind of fresh citrus tones as well coming through it.
And so I've handily provided a picture of yuzu there. So it's quite big seeds, which I guess probably most citrus fruit used to before they got bred commercially, which yuzu hadn't previously. It probably has been now, but yeah, I mean, when the citrus that I had on my farm growing up was like just a random citrus tree, and it had very big seeds too. So yuzu and basil, did we like it? When we judge chocolate, the first thing we're supposed to do is actually, before we can put in any other assessment, is say whether we like our gut reaction, like it and don't like it, not sure, and indifferent. And then we get to like be more specific and rate each of those on a scale of 1 to 5. And then at the end, when we finish judging, we then have to submit on a scale of 1 to 5 how much we like or dislike that flavor. So that way it's kind of taken into consideration our personal preferences, because obviously, but we're supposed to kind of put that aside when we have a gut reaction to liking or disliking chocolate, because it should also be about like the technical skill and whether the balance of flavors is correct. So even if you don't like licorice, for example, it's still supposed to be, you should still be able to, as a professional, identify that it is a positive licorice flavor. So pink one, I had to do this because I couldn't remember which one. I should have put them in order. Pink one is the next chocolate that we're going to taste. And voila. In case you would like to see the inside, in case you are biting into them, which is totally fine. I'm going to put them in order so I don't have to open the screen each time. Okay. It's always like so much pressure when you try chocolate for the first time because of that whole melting at body temperature. Obviously, ganaches and pralines melt more quickly than a bar of chocolate, but you still find that the flavor takes a little while to hit your brain. I don't know if you tried the smelling versus like smelling beforehand and then tasting it and then smelling what's left, and how you pretty much can't smell anything once the chocolate's in your mouth. That's why I encourage smelling. So especially something like yuzu and the basil is probably easier to pick up on just smelling than it is on tasting. But so much of what we know as taste is connected to our sense of smell, but we have orthonasal olfaction, so smelling outside of your head, and then you have the passages from the back of your mouth that go up through your nose to your brain, well, sort of connect to the same nasal passages. No flavors mentioned yet. I'm gonna cut this so that I can. I'm back. Burnt cake. Interesting. I quite like burnt cake. Nice texture though, isn't it? Cherry. Not sure how long I should wait before putting you out of your misery with this one.
I don't think this one's very fair, Jen.
I know, you're right, it's not fair. It's, okay, so you know how I mentioned that there are over 300 different flavors that you can find naturally in chocolate? This is a pure ganache with nothing added to it. Which is why you're finding it hard, because it's not, it tastes like all those things, burnt cake, cherry, raspberry, but clearly none of them have been added. And so that is it was a little bit of a trick. I thought it would be fun to see and demonstrate how you get amazing flavors just from plain chocolate. I would make you guess a percentage, but I feel like that would be really tricky because it's had like cream and things added to it, which makes it pretty hard. But it's a fairly high percentage, as I'm sure you can tell. Anyone want to guess what origin? It comes from one particular country? I don't think I could guess it, so I won't do that to you. But feel free if you would like to guess, because knowing that there's no wrong answers. And I meant to say actually at the beginning, when you don't feel shy about suggesting flavors. So there aren't any wrong answers, because what happens, like our sense of smell and taste and our memories are so intertwined that you might taste something in a chocolate and it reminds you of something, and then you connect it to something else that you smelt at the same time. And so like it often misfires. So yeah, don't be shy about what you're tasting, because yeah, that happens even to professionals. I can tell you a story about that later if you like. I'm going to share my screen so I can reveal, in case you want to write down. You can write down and reveal you can write down what the chocolates are, but I will send you a list tonight so that you don't need to. Da, da, da. Come on, there we go. I think someone guessed Venezuela? No, I don't think so. Venezuela's tricky. Did you want to talk about it at all, Al?
No, to be honest, yeah, this 72% Venezuelan chocolate is one made by a French chocolate maker called Valrhona. So it's one of my favorite single origins to eat just in its chocolate form. So yeah, I like this ganache. The difference I've made with this ganache over a normal ganache is normally I'd make it with cream and butter. So, but the difference on this one is I've used cream and clarified butter. So the real difference is that normal butter is solid at room temperature, whereas clarified butter is liquid at room temperature. So just for this tasting, I kind of wanted to see what the texture would be like, and it actually gives the ganache a softer, like I think it creates a really nice kind of texture in that ganache. So that's the kind of main difference, is the butter that I kind of flipped out. So yeah, that's the main one about that chocolate.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know of anyone else doing that, and I think that's a really important point. Like, I don't know if we're conscious of how silky that texture of the ganache was, and so it's fascinating that this one and the yuzu and basil were both made with the clarified butter, because generally butter is put in to improve the shelf life, and it also makes the like slightly more solid texture, which can be useful particularly if you're molding chocolate by putting the ganache, piping it onto a tray and letting it set and rolling it into balls and dipping it into chocolate. But yeah, when it's already encased in a shell, it doesn't need that.
Yeah, and actually using clarified butter will actually extend my shelf life a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so normally in butter you've got about 15% water content. So by using clarified butter, you're actually removing that 15% water content, which actually stabilizes it for slightly longer.
Oh, that's excellent, and giving a better texture.
Yeah, so it is a good ingredient.
Yeah, because normally when you extend the shelf life of chocolate, you switch to using invert sugars, which give you more like glucose, so you get a like stickier texture, which is fine. It's not unpleasant, but it's not. I generally prefer like just that when you just bite in and it just melts away because it's pure cream.
I think that is the thing about longer shelf life chocolates, is either you've got to reduce the water content right down, or you've got to stabilize it with sugars. So you're kind of compromising. Whereas actually this, like, it's not going to extend it hugely, but like actually just changing the butter to clarified butter, it actually doesn't have a detriment to the chocolate. So it is quite interesting.
Okay, next chocolate. We're going to try the sphere next, so I'll hold it up and then I'll do a share as well. If you're sharing the chocolates or planning to eat part of them later, when you cut through it, try and keep the kind of the cap base at the bottom when you cut, because it has 2 layers, which isn't very obvious because they're very similar in color. But you want to make sure that when you cut it, you're going to be able to bite and try both layers at the same time. It's not very clear, unfortunately. I didn't realize when I took a photo of this one. You can kind of, the second layer's kind of around there. It's moved a little bit in this photo. It was, if I'd known, I would have taken a photo of this one, which is much more distinct. So this one has been double dipped. So there's a shell which has the 2 layers piped into it, and then it's been dipped in another layer of chocolate. So it's got 2 shells. Very exciting. Word that's original. Yes, quite a few people said that on Wednesday night as well.
Getting close.
So biscuits and caramel is correct, but there's also another flavour. I'm finding it much less obvious today. It's so fascinating how your palate is like on fire one day and you're really sensitive to things, and then the next day it's not so much at all. I'm having one of those days. So the biscuits are in that outer layer, that's the double dipping layer.
So we have a milk shell, and then we roll it in a very small amount of milk chocolate, and then roll it in the biscuit crumb. And then once that's set, we then take milk chocolate that we make very thin with cocoa butter, and then dip it again to give it the kind of rocher finish. So it is all milk chocolate. It's just a few different layers of milk chocolate. 3
layers. Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's
very cool.
It's yeah, it's quite a lot of work, but I think these kind of finishes are super interesting. So you know, for me, I think they're really worth it.
I do too. Okay, so this chocolate is, I might reveal it on the written thing because I feel like that will be fun. You know, making you wait. Sorry, cruel. Ta-da! Banoffee pie. I'll let you explain the ingredients, Al.
Yeah, so in the truffle shell, we have a layer of salt caramel, and then we have a banana ganache. And then, like I said, it kind of then gets rolled and dipped in biscuit crumbs. So, you know, a few component parts of a banoffee pie in chocolate form. But yeah, like Jen says, kind of chocolates taste different at kind of different times, what you've eaten, you know, how you're feeling. But equally, kind of when you use real ingredients like we do, you know, they will, like, if you ate them day 1, they'll taste different to day 14 and different to day 28, because we're not putting in an artificial flavoring. So with these fresh chocolates, you know, the best chocolates will be always when you eat them the freshest. So yeah, I didn't actually have that. That was one in my box that I didn't actually have, so I haven't been able to try it today. But yeah, it quite possibly has kind of reduced in flavor since Thursday, but equally it might be what we've eaten before, or, you know, how you're feeling. So
yeah, I always say this, that so on the chocolate tours, we've been going to Paul A. Young for years, and I think he's probably one of the few chocolatiers we visit who has a sort of 7-day shelf life on his chocolates. I think he makes them with a 2-week shelf life so that they can be on the table for 7 days. Otherwise, that would be a very challenging turnover. But they often say that for some of those chocolates, it would be because they might grow mold after 2 weeks because the water content is high. He does a lot of water ganache chocolates. But the other reason is because when you use something like basil, in this one, it did last, because I mean, Al only made these last weekend, so they're still only a week old now. But the well, Al and his team, I should say, they've been made kind of in the, yeah, they're all less than a week and a half old. So they, but something like basil will just by day 14, or sort of by day 21, you won't actually be able to tell that there's basil in it. So the sooner you taste chocolates, the more intense the flavor is, like Al said. So yeah, it can be really challenging for chocolatiers creating new recipes and then having to wait 14 days to be able to tell whether it still tastes the same on day 1. And they all do taste like better the sooner you eat them. So if you go into fresh chocolate shops, it's always worth asking what's been made most recently. And the great thing about buying from somewhere like the Chocolate Society is, like, they send them out as soon as they make them. So sooner you eat them when they arrive, again, there's your permission, eat the chocolate. When it arrives, eat lots of it so you taste it better. Okay, the 4th chocolate we're going to try, fifth, we're at 5th now, aren't we? Sorry. Yeah, that was the 4th. The 5th one is the white one. So you should have white and red left. We're gonna try the white one, and then the red one will be last. Screen. Two layers. Passion fruit. I'm not going to comment yet, just because I want to give everybody else a chance to. Doesn't mean you're wrong or right. Just want to give everybody else a chance to answer. Just going to quickly send an email to Annika. Again, there's a couple of ingredients: 2-second coconut and passion fruit. Okay. So those 2 are correct, and there's more than just passion fruit, though. Mango is correct, and lemon's close. Nice one, Kate.
Yeah, amazing.
You guys are awesome. Mango and coconut rice. Nobody said rice, but I'll let Al explain.
Yeah, so this is, it is a mango caramel, but what I find is when I make a mango caramel, it can kind of sometimes be overly sweet. So for me, for the kind of chocolate, like I quite like kind of acidity in chocolate. And so what I did is instead of just making it with mango, I added some calamansi lime. So that gives it a real kind of sharpness to the caramel. And then what I did is, once I made the caramel, I made a ganache with a passion fruit chocolate. So again, I'm adding more acidity in it. So yeah, it gives it quite a nice kind of rounded flavor of not just being overly sweet mango. There's some acidity in there. And then there's a white chocolate coconut ganache with desiccated toasted coconut in there underneath, all wrapped up in a dark shell.
Am I wrong about the rice then? There's no rice in it.
No, there's no rice. There's desiccated coconut, but no rice.
Oh, whoops.
No, that's okay.
I couldn't really taste the rice in this, but then my palate's not so
yeah
great, you know.
like it's kind of, it is kind of inspired by kind of mango coconut rice in terms of you know,
it must be our conversation then, that I think you told me that, and then I thought that there was rice in it.
No, there's actually no rice. Desiccated coconut.
It gives it kind of the texture of rice though. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense that nobody could tell rice. Well, I think you should do it with rice next time. That would be cool.
It'd be interesting. Yeah.
Oh, rice is probably a bit dangerous, isn't it? Because it has like it doesn't last.
No.
Yeah, maybe don't.
But Anna said something interesting there, that kind of maybe a bit more of a thicker layer of coconut. And like when I tried it on Thursday, I actually agreed that, you know, the mango caramel is actually really quite vibrant, that it could be reduced in that chocolate and then given a bit more of a coconut layer. So yeah, kind of if I played with it again, then that's probably what I'd try, Anna. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And
I'd love it in a white chocolate shell as well. Even though generally I'm not a white chocolate fan, but like if it was a really like low sugar white chocolate, I think it could be. I mean, I love it like this. So just because I like to try all variations of chocolate, not because this was not.
We're doing a passion fruit chocolate in a white shell actually for this month. So I'll send you some of them, Jen.
That was the Pavlova one, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And you are correct, Ben. I was actually going to talk about the passion fruit couverture. Nice one. Someone knows their chocolate. So for those of you who don't know, white chocolate is generally made with cocoa butter, which is just the fat part of the cocoa bean, sugar and milk powder. Often has vanilla added to it. But you can make white chocolate with other ingredients instead of milk powder. So as long as cocoa butter is your base, you still need sugar to make it taste pleasant. And then you can use like nuts, so you can make it with hazelnuts and make like a gianduja white chocolate, which Solkiki do. Valrhona and also Zotta and a few other companies make versions of white chocolate that have the powdered fruit in them. So this one is made with powdered passion fruit and cocoa butter and sugar. So it's so amazing to taste just the like chocolate on its own. It's really zingy. And yeah, vegan. Obviously, this chocolate's not vegan, but the passion fruit couverture is. They do a raspberry version and an almond. They do
yuzu and strawberry as well.
Oh, I haven't had the yuzu one.
Yeah, yuzu's good. It's really good. I think for me it's interesting because normally when you make a caramel and then you make a ganache with it, normally you'd use white chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, whereas using these fruit couvertures, when you use something like white chocolate, it can make it slightly kind of like, I don't know if it's a strawberry caramel, it can make it slightly milkshakey. Whereas actually by being able to use some of these fruit couvertures, you can retain all the fruit kind of zing through the caramel. So I think for us, that's something which we really like doing. They do work well in that sense, but they are kind of, as an ingredient, incredibly expensive, but I think they're worth it.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you actually realize that in that caramel, so if you just taste it on its own, it does taste like a caramel. But you can really elevate the flavor of the caramel, like even if you're making a salted caramel at home, by putting in some milk chocolate and stirring it through at the end. And so you get like kind of chocolatey, and it just becomes a bit richer. And so, yeah, like Al said, though, if it's a fruit caramel, if you add the dairy, then it's going to make it different. But yeah, having these non-dairy fruit chocolates. adds extra zing. I really like your suggestion of rice pudding based in a green tea shell. That would be amazing. And it is a Japanese like aficionado in terms of flavors. But yeah, that's a very cool suggestion. This is great, like free market research, Al.
I've got my pad of paper. I'm writing down all the ideas. So
perfect. We'll see them at here. So we have actually. Can I reveal what we've been discussing, Al? These guys can get a sneak preview.
Yeah.
And anyone who watches the video, I don't think many people will, but anyone who does. So Al and I have been discussing. The plan is to have a different chocolatier every month, but I do also intend to return to some of my favorites like Al, and we're going to look at potentially in 2 future months. In one of them, we're going to ask all of you guys to submit some flavor suggestions, and we will let you know. You'll have to submit at least 2, and then we will let you know in advance if one of your flavor suggestions has been made. And so you'll be like tasting it, like, oh, that's mine. And you have to submit 2, because otherwise, like, we'll end up with potentially just everybody saying, oh, passion fruit, or rice pudding in a green tea shell. So yeah, that's the plan. And then for another month, we're going to ask a chef / like cookbook writer to go along with Al and create some new flavors as well. So when they join the call, they'll be able to talk about what made them suggest it and things. So hopefully you think those are good ideas. But yeah, I'll give you a chance to submit your flavors and see them created into real chocolates. Okay, final chocolate is the red one. I think I don't need to reveal this, but I will share my screen for the sake of anyone who needs it. And because I want to show you the inside. So when you cut through, if you go back, if you look at the bottom, I mean, you can see the base of your own chocolate, but for anyone who happens to be watching this without the chocolates, they might like to know that this, we think, is a world first of a 2-toned capped chocolate, or double capped. I'm not really sure what the right word would be. 2-toned capped chocolate. So when Al was making this, I'm going to put his words in his mouth, he couldn't decide which flavor or which chocolate would be better to cap off the base. And so he thought he'd pipe half and half. There's a video on his Instagram of him doing it, which I meant to share, but my story's got a bit overwhelmed sharing everybody's pictures. So yeah, that's if you cut this in half along that seam and then cut it in half again, you can actually try it, and it's almost like tasting 2 separate chocolates. So if you have it with the pale half versus the red half, it's like a totally different experience. So it's kind of like you're getting 7 chocolates in one. So like looking after you guys. Okay, raspberry, peanut butter, biscuit, peanut butter and jelly, raspberry. You guys are good. So this one is a little bit easier than some of the others, which is why we thought we'd jazz it up, partly with that 2-toned base, but also there's another ingredient that hasn't been mentioned yet that goes very well with peanut butter and jelly. If you're American, not really something we do in this country very much, I don't think. Yeah, red. Sourdough toast, in fact. Is sourdough?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's from a local bakery to where the factory is in Somerset. It's in the same town. So I freshly toasted some sourdough crumb, and then I've included it in the peanut praline to PB&J on toast, really.
Yeah. Did any of you, I should have said this before I encouraged you to start eating it, but did any of you try the 2 halves separately? The side with the same as the shell, which is the caramelized milk chocolate. And then the other half is the raspberry couverture. When we were talking before about the passion fruit one, that's the raspberry one, which is just, so zingy. Boston. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so to be honest, with the mixed cap on the base, it's not really something that I could do in a big production run, but for this I could do it because it was 4 or 5 shells. So I basically tempered my raspberry couverture, and then I tempered the blonde chocolate, so I had both ready, and then I had a piping bag of each, and I basically did a line down half the chocolate with raspberry, half a line with blonde chocolate, and then I did it along each line, and then I scraped it off and kind of created it that way. But I thought, for me, what was interesting, or the idea behind it, was I couldn't decide whether I preferred the chocolate with the blonde chocolate base or the raspberry chocolate base. So I thought by doing half and half, it gave you guys the opportunity to try the chocolate in both ways and then kind of make a decision on it.
I'm eating. I think the general consensus from Wednesday was the raspberry one. But what I think is, yeah, not going to choose. Like, this is what I was saying about, I'd love to try the mango and coconut chocolate with a white chocolate shell in the same, but I love both of those bases, and I would love the mango and coconut chocolate. I assume I would like it in a white shell, but I love it in a dark shell as well. So it's just so interesting how you get such a different taste experience.
But I think for me as well, it's interesting kind of like, you know, if people were making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, not everyone would put the same ratios in that. So it's kind of like, some people might like more peanut, which I think you get with the blonde chocolate side, and then some people might like more jam, which you get with the kind of raspberry couverture side. So I kind of think it's really interesting knowing kind of what different people like and how different people taste.
Yeah, and I think that's why people like, yeah, you can't please everybody. And I find it so fascinating, having done 15 years of chocolate tours, thousands of people, and always asking them at the end what their favorite thing that they tasted in the day was. And it's like always different. Like, somebody chooses different things. And the same, we found that on Wednesday when we asked people to like type in their favorite from the night from this selection, and it was all different. When we go to a PMA and try the macarons, and everybody gets choice of which one they want to try, and they all choose different ones. So yeah, it's nice to, I think that's sometimes a scary thing about ordering a mystery box of chocolates, is that you don't have control over what's in it, but it's also part of the fun, hopefully. Has a little one tried chocolate yet? Yeah. It does seem quite little. I let Maya had some 100% chocolate yesterday morning. It's hard to tell how much of her like energy it was a tiny amount. I don't think it was really connected to tasting the 100%. That's a good description, Anna. On the raspberry one's much more like, yeah, quick, hard and fast. So you want to type in which one you like the best, if you don't mind sharing. Hopefully they were all fun and enjoyable. And I'd love to know, when you've done that, what questions that you have, if any. I think I started saying something earlier and then didn't finish it. So when we were tasting the single origin ganache, and so some of these flavors were coming up, and I was talking also about how memory affects how we taste, but the fact that chocolate itself has lots of these flavor notes in it. When you're tasting a chocolate, sometimes the interaction of the chocolate flavor with the ingredients creates a whole other flavor, especially when it comes down to subtleties in choosing between fruits or herbs or things like that. It can, I've probably said this before on the monthly chocolate tastings, but if you remember those Jelly Belly jelly beans, and it has on the back of the packet that if you try the like vanilla and the raspberry at the same time, it will taste like Jello or something. I can't remember what all the instructions were, but just the interaction of two different flavors together, you can get something that's totally different. Banoffee using basil. The basil one's great. I love the texture, especially of the basil one, and just the combination. It's generally, I never used to like herbs in chocolate until I found chocolatiers who did it well. I don't know if it's a woman in Nottingham. I'm not even sure if she's still making chocolates, but she does some really lovely ones. If I can find out, I will put it in the email if you like. She's worth checking out. Oh, the basil is Lee's favorite. It reminds me of churches. How interesting. That's in Romania, yeah? How is basil used in the church? That's fascinating. Interesting. Oh, Kate's gone. Guess she had to leave. Does anyone have any questions? You can come off mute if you want to just ask them, and I can stop the recording for that bit if you don't want to be filmed. Any questions?
This is not about chocolate, so this is kind of a lame question, but to get the subscription to work. I couldn't get it to work because we want to do it every month.
Thank you. I love that question. You mean for the monthly tastings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry, Al. I'm sure they won't.
No, Al. I already made a 6-month purchase.
I was just going to say thank you very much. It's just come through on my phone. So thank you very much, Ben.
Oh, yeah. So I have hi, more children. I paused the I took it off the website because I was advised to, but I'm going to put it back on. I partly took it off because I wasn't sure if I was going to do them every month because I was nervous about August, and I didn't see how. And then I thought I could probably just pick a selection and post it to you that was like, and didn't like a bar. Anyway, Al is most likely going to be the chocolatier in August, and we'll send it out again by DPD. So that way, if he makes them in advance, we can choose a day that we know it's not going to be 30 degrees plus, hopefully, unless we get like a 1 whole week of 30 degrees plus, and then we might have to delay the tasting. But it's England. We usually get 1 week like that in a year if we're lucky, but that's the plan to
we can normally send out in August. It doesn't seem to be a huge problem normally.
Yeah, I think when I was originally bringing in other chocolatiers, so they all had to arrive at my house safely and then get posted out again. It was just like not. Last year when it was just bars and Duffy's chocolate arrived. I luckily ordered extra because there was some of it was melted when it got to me, but not all of it, thankfully. And I just ate the bit that was melted though. It was still good. So we're going to do August as well. So I'll get the subscription working again in the next day or so. Thank you. That would be lovely. Any more questions about the chocolates or chocolatiers or anything? So I do run these every month, and it's we're gonna next month. My guest will be Georgina Hayden. If you don't know, she's super lovely. She's been on Sunday Brunch and Saturday Morning Kitchen a few times. I've known her for quite a long time. She ran a charity brunch with me a couple of years ago, and yeah, she's just such fun. It's going to be great. And the chocolatier I haven't announced yet, so that will be announced in the next little while. But this particular chocolatier uses a lot of craft chocolate, and there's only 100 boxes of this one because they're such a small chocolatier that's all that they can manage alongside their other production for Father's Day, because it's unfortunately right before Father's Day. And then in July, I haven't put it on the website yet, but it's I think Tuesday the 21st. But the June is Wednesday the 16th, and it'll be at 8 p.m. because Georgie has small children, so we're starting a little bit later. Probably works for you guys as well. Cool. But yeah, I would love to see you there again. On the A4 sheet of paper, there's a code at the bottom, which should be working now, which will give you £5 off if you'd like to join us again. And I just want to thank you all for coming. I'm really glad that we could do this again so that you could be here with us live. And thank you especially to Al for coming again to chat through his chocolates with us. Anything else? Okay, well, I will leave you to go back and eat your way through the chocolates again and see if you have a new favorite when you try them in a different order, perhaps. Oh, for anyone, just in case anyone's watching this and wants to know about the basil in the church, I'm going to read out. A bunch of dried basil is dipped in holy water and the priest waves it around and purifies everything in sight. Excellent, kind of like sage, I guess, smoking sage. Good to know. I might go and Google that because that sounds fascinating. Oh, that's come up on my screen. Hopefully that's, I don't think that we recorded. Anyway, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I will
Thank you very much.
see you in June.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.